From Jon Jones rooting for the underdog to Robert Whittaker going for the safer option, pro fighters just cannot seem to find a consensus on who's the favorite between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. So let's talk about who everyone's backing. I mean, this fight is massive for not only these two fighters, but for the UFC as a whole. Not only is it Adesanya's chance to set the record straight after that shock TKO at UFC 281, but it's also Pereira's chance to prove that his last win wasn't a fluke. Of course, most people will jump to say that he got lucky when he TKO'd the last stylebender out of nowhere and all that jazz. Though, if you remember, that win did put him 3-0 up against Israel. The point is that there's a lot on the line for these two. It's not just about the title or maintaining a record anymore. It's about pride and legacy. And trust me, you don't want to mess with anyone who's fighting for their pride. That said, the rest of the UFC 287 card is also pretty stacked, with another super anticipated bout between Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. Let's stay on the main event, however, because going into it, there are definitely gonna be some mind games from the two fighters. Adesanya, for one, will think he's just too good for Poatan, despite losing 3 times already, and he'll use the whole fluke argument to get into Pereira's head. You know, just so he starts doubting his ability, but it's not gonna be easy at all, because, well, Alex knows he's got what it takes to beat the stylebender. As a matter of fact, since he's coming into this fight with a 4-win hot streak, nothing can dissuade him. Well, apart from maybe one thing, and that's the odds. Yep, even though the Brazilian has, as Jon Jones put it, Adesanya's number, he's still not the favorite to retain his middleweight championship. According to odds from CBS Sports, he heads into the fight on April 8th with plus 130 odds, while Adesanya goes into the bout as the outright favorite at minus 155. But of course, this is the UFC we're talking about here, and literally anything can happen. I mean, these two are hands down the best kickboxers in the organization and know what they're facing. The last stylebender will continue to do what he does best, and that's running around the octagon looking for an opening. Well, unless he's come up with some new strategy to take the Brazilian down. I know what you're thinking though. Why would you go for the same strategy that resulted in you losing bouts before as well? And you'd be right to think that. But the thing is that you've gotta play to your strengths. Besides, it's not like Izzy did something wrong in the previous bout, he just got unlucky. So hey, maybe Lady Luck will be on his side, right? Speaking of being on Adesanya's side, however, Khamzat Chimaev thinks the last stylebender's got the fight on lock as well. In fact, he's so confident in Israel's ability to come out on top that he went ahead and called it the easiest fight in his career. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. Still, Boers did make a good point by suggesting that Pereira's basically got zero wrestling prowess. So if Izzy can add some wrestling into his training and grapple Alex, he's gonna steamroll through him. Now, this is pretty good advice to be fair, because adding wrestling into the mix could potentially give Adesanya the edge over Pereira. Oh, and Khamzat isn't the only guy who thinks Izzy's got the W in the bag. A bunch of other fighters back Adesanya to come back with a vengeance too. Whittaker, for instance, says that it all depends on how the last stylebender has taken the last loss. If he's somehow managed to not let it get to his head, and if he's still training with a clear mind, then he's got every right to beat the Brazilian. As a matter of fact, Robert went as far as to predict that we might actually see a much more relaxed and free Adesanya come April 8th. Dricus du Plessis, however, has other reasons for favoring the Nigerian Kiwi. For him, Izzy's got nothing to lose coming into the fight. You know, like an, if this is the last thing I'll do, I'm gonna win scenario. Du Plessis also said that he wasn't sure if Adesanya's got that hunger to fight back after losing 3 times already. Well, there's no point in even speculating about that anymore. anymore, cause guess what? Adesanya himself has addressed everyone who's doubting his hunger. Yep, speaking with the media at UFC 284, he seemed pretty angry about everyone trying to put him down. He said that he's never not been motivated to fight Pereira. For this fight, however, he's putting extra pressure on himself to go out there and perform. I have to beat this guy. They can say whatever they want, he said. Oh, and as for the 3-0 record, he said he doesn't care about any of that. All he cares about is winning this one and reclaiming his throne. I mean, whether you think he's gonna win or not, you can't deny the fact that he seems very confident right now, and that can only bode well for the fight. Though, of course, there are people who think Pereira's gonna destroy him for the 4th time running too. In fact, the majority of fighters are actually on the Brazilian side. John Bones Jones, for one, was pretty brutal with his prediction, saying that Alex just has Adesanya's number, and no matter how many times he comes back at Poatan, the last stylebender's got no chance of winning the bout. Speaking in front of the media at the UFC 285, John also talked about how Pereira works hard, which is why he's rooting for him. I believe he's going to do it again, he said. Marvin Vettori also echoed similar sentiments, saying that there's no way Izzy could beat Pereira at UFC 287, though he also snuck in his own ambition, saying he'd love to fight either of these two guys next. Now, Vettori has already lost twice against Adesanya, so he must think really highly of Alex to predict this outcome. In the meantime, Sean Strickland just straight up trash-talked the stylebender in his prediction during an interview with MMA Junkie's Mike Bone. He said that he expects Adesanya to dance around like a little and outpoint Pereira. Now, that's kinda harsh, but hey, at least he's rooting for Izzy here, right? Well, kinda. It feels like he was just salty about getting knocked out by Pereira within half a round back in July last year. In fact, he even talked about how the Brazilians got an insane reach advantage over him, but things are gonna be more even with Adesanya. With all that being said, what does Pereira himself have to say about his chances? Well, to no one's surprise, he's backing himself here, though what he said was still pretty fascinating. In an interview with Super Lutas, Poatan revealed a secret that he hadn't told anyone before. He said that he had 28 fights in his amateur, and he won 25 of them by knockout. The other 3, he lost to the same guy, and he doesn't understand why. Pereira then added that the guy he lost to has stopped fighting, but if he fought him again today, he'd still lose. In fact, if he fought that guy 10 times, he'd lose all of those matches. And for him, the situation with Adesanya is very similar. So, no matter how many times Izzy comes at him, he's just gonna lose because, again, Alex just has him figured out. Yeah, the mind games are pretty strong with this one. But on that note, those were the pro fighters' picks for Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira at UFC 287.